I've studied a lot of different philosophical, spiritual practices and religions, and I've come to the conclusion that a lot of our suffering stems from fixation on materialism, from my understanding. Kind of attachment to things, attachment to homes, attachment to people, attachment to money. At an early age, I realized there was just more to this world than what you can feel, the tangible, the material. And I always sought for, I was the seeker of something beyond that, beyond the material world. So when I see people suffering because of materialism, I don't know how to help them. I don't know how to help them in their suffering of attachment and, seeking materialism, money, greed. I just kind of see it a mile away coming, and I see them suffering because of it. And it's not to say that I'm saying, you don't need money or things. Obviously, everyone needs money and things. That's not the point. I'm just wondering how one deals with being surrounded by people that you see them suffering because, and they cause suffering to others with their attachment to things, money, materialism, and creating suffering in the process of that.
내가 보기에 고통을 받지 그 사람들은 고통받는다는 생각을 안 할 수도 있습니다.
So perhaps you think they're suffering. Do you think they think they're suffering? They might not think that.
그들이 나한테 찾아와서 내가 이렇게 고통스러우니까 도와주세요라고 요청을 했습니까?
Did they come to you and ask for your help? Can you help me to avoid or get away from this suffering?
I suffer as a consequence of that, and then also they suffer because they're visibly upset. They're visibly, you can visibly see that they're suffering with their attachment and their greed.
왜 당나라 고통을 받습니까?
So why do you suffer? Because
만약에
they suffer.
그렇다면 당신은 그들과 똑같은 사람이에요.
So if you suffer because they suffer, then you are no different from they are.
그들은 물질 때문에 고통을 받고
So they suffer because of their material attachment,
나는 그들 때문에 고통을 받고
but I suffer because of they suffer.
똑같은 거잖아요.
It's the same thing.
그들이 물질 때문에 고통을 받지 않기를 원하면 나는 그들 때문에 고통을 받지 않아야 돼.
If you don't want them to suffer because of attachment to material things, then you should not suffer because they suffer.
먼저 자신이 평화로워져야 합니다.
First and foremost, you have to be at peace
모든 것으로부터.
from everything.
그런 다음에
Next,
그들이 요청을 하면
and if they ask,
도움을 줄 수는 있습니다.
then you can give help.
그러나 내가 보기에 저들이 고통받는다 이 생각은 굉장히 위험한 생각이에요.
But it's dangerous to assume that they are suffering.
제가 어릴 때 경험이 있습니다.
So I have this experience when I was a child.
제가 어릴 때는 화장실이 재래식이라 그래서 그냥 이렇게 웅덩이 같은 데다가 이렇게 변을 그냥 이렇게 놓아서 거기 쌓이게 했습니다.
So when I was growing up, we didn't have actually those modern bathrooms. So basically, they created a hole in the ground with some kind of wooden plank, and that's where you went.
그리고 그것을 나중에 오물을 퍼내서 이렇게 섞여서 이렇게 밭에 걸음으로 썼습니다.
So what we did, after a while, when enough waste gathered, you actually took it out and used it as fertilizer.
그런데 이제 그런 오물 구덩이에는 늘 구더기가 이렇게 아주 많이 있습니다.
Yeah, obviously, because of human waste lay there for a while, so you have a lot of maggots.
그들은 그 구더기가 거기로부터 기어 나오려고 막 노력을 했어요. 올라오다가 또 떨어지고 올라오다가 또 떨어지고 이런 걸 봤습니다. 그 변을 보면서.
So basically, I looked at the waste, and you see a lot of maggots trying to crawl out from that waste, crawl out along the walls, but they fall back. They crawl out and they fall back.
제가 생각하기에 이 구더기들이 더러운 곳으로부터 벗어나려고 저러구나 이렇게 생각을 했어요.
So trying to project my own sensibilities, I think the maggots are trying to get away from this dirty waste and failing, and I felt bad.
그래서 제가 그 부엌에 가서 이 그물을 가져와서 이걸 떠서 물에 깨끗이 씻어서 하얀 그릇에다 이렇게 탁 담아줬습니다.
So I actually, got a little net, right, and crafted this little net. Got all the maggots that I could from the waste, clean them up with fresh water, and put it in a nice clean plate.
그들이 거기서 다 기어 나와가 도로 오물구덩이로 들어갔어요.
Then these ungrateful maggots will all get out of those nice clean plate and go back into the human waste.
그때 저는 굉장히 충격을 받았습니다.
And I was shocked at that.
이게 내 보기에 더럽지 그들은 더러운 것이 아니에요.
The realization that came was that this was dirty according to me, but not according to the maggot.
그래서 함부로 내가 보고 다른 사람이 어떻다 하고 단정하거나 그들을 구제해야 된다거나 이런 거는 굉장히 사실은 독선적 사고고 위험합니다.
So it's very dangerous attitude, and it's very arbitrary attitude to hold, to assume that somebody else is suffering because of their attachment or situation, and you feel compelled to save them.
그러니까 그들의 삶에 관여하지 마십시오.
So do not actually insert yourself into their lives,
그들은 잘 살아가고 있습니다.
because they're living the best they can.
그들이 나한테 묻거나 도움을 요청하면 그때 내가 할 수 있으면 내 의견을 말해주고 없으면 나도 모르겠다 하면 됩니다.
But if they ask you for your opinion or for your assistance or help, that's when you can actually share your thoughts and see if you can help.
엄격하게는 사람은 다른 사람을 도울 수가 없습니다.
But to speaking, in a very basic, essentially, one person really does not have the ability to help substantially another person.
남을 도울 수 있다는 생각이 오히려 위험한 생각입니다.
In fact, the assumption you're making, the fact that you think you can help another person, that in itself is a very dangerous thought.
그들이 도움을 요청하면 겸손하게 그래 그건 도와줄 수 있다. 밥은 한 끼 살 수 있어. 도네이션은 조금 할 수 있어. 나도 그 경험해 봤으니까 내가 의견을 조금 내줄 수 있어. 이렇게 접근해야 합니다.
So if somebody does ask you, perhaps you can, in full modesty, say, okay, maybe I can buy you a meal, or maybe I can make this donation, or perhaps I can share a similar experience I had and how I actually suffered through that.
So if their greed and their selfishness and their attachment to materialism is causing you personal suffering, you're not trying to actually help them or save them. They're just causing you personal suffering because you happen to be in you just happen to be in their field, their physical field. Do you just remove yourself, or how do you deal with that?
근데 그냥 떠날 필요 없습니다. 그냥 지켜보면 돼요.
So you don't have to leave or remove yourself, you just observe.
나도 같이 괴로워하면 그들은 나한테 도움을 청하지 않습니다. 똑같으니까.
Because if I suffer along with them, then they would not ask me for help to relieve them of their suffering because they see that you are suffering and it's just like them.
내가 이렇게 행복하게 기쁘게 이렇게 살면 그 사람들은 나한테 묻습니다. 야, 네 뭐가 요리 좋아서 그렇게 사느냐? 이렇게 요청을 하면 그건 이렇게 보면 좋겠다. 이렇게 요청하는 만큼만 얘기해 주면 돼요.
But if you are happy and peaceful, regardless, then they'll actually be curious and ask you, what makes you so happy and peaceful all the time, and you share to the level of their question, not more.
지난 인류의 역사를 살펴보면요,
If you look at human history,
세상 사람을 구제하겠다, 세상 사람을 돕겠다라고 하는 종교나 이런 정치적 이념이 오히려 세상 사람을 고통에 빠뜨린 게 훨씬 더 많습니다.
so there are multiple cases in which ideologies of movements or people with savior complexes actually cause more suffering to human beings than others.
자기부터 행복하세요.
So be peace and be happy yourself first and foremost.
So if they want something of yours that you can't give them and that causes of suffering, how do you deal with that?
뭘 달라는데요?
What are they asking for?
For instance, money. For example, money. They want your money, but you can't give it to them.
없다 그러면 되죠.
You just say you don't have it.
그럼 어렵습니까?
Why is that difficult?
Well, it causes them suffering, which causes suffering to you.
왜 고통스럽습니까?
Then why do you suffer?
그럼 내가 구더기를 보고 고통스러워하는 건 똑같은
Because
거예요.
It's the same thing as me suffering because I look at maggots struggling.
내가 줄 수 있으면 주면 되고요.
So if you can share that money, give them money, then go ahead and do
줄 수
so.
없으면 돈이 없다 그러면 되죠.
But if you don't have the money to give them, tell them you don't have the money.
오히려 돈이 있는데 아까워서 못 주면 좀 괴로울 수가 있어요.
If you have the money, can spare the money, but you don't want to give it to them, that might actually cause you some guilt and suffering.
그러나 없어서 못 주는 건 괴롭지 않습니다.
But if you don't have the money to give them, why is it a cause for suffering?
저는 내가 돈을 가지고 있지 않기 때문에 누가 돈을 달라 그래도 아무렇지도 않아요.
Because I don't have to carry money. I don't have money. If somebody asks me for money, I tell them no, I don't have any money. It doesn't cause me any problems.
내가 원하는 것이 다 이루어질 수가 없습니다.
Not everything I want will come to be.
그런데 우리는 마치 원하는 것이 이루어질 것 같은 지금 착각을 하고 있습니다.
But we always live with a mistaken belief that what I want will come to pass.
그래서 원하는 것이 이루어지지 않으면 괴롭습니다.
And we suffer when they don't.
원하는 것이 다 이루어질 수 없다는 사실을 알면
But once you realize that not everything you want or desire will come to pass,
원하는 것이 이루어지지 않는다고 괴로울 일이 없습니다.
then there's no longer reason to suffer just because it didn't happen the way you wanted it.
이루어지면 다행이고
If it does happen the way you want it, that's great.
이루어지지 않으면 그만이고
But if not, c'est la vie.
그래도 이루고 싶으면
But if you still want to pursue it,
또 시도를 하면
then
돼요.
you try again.
되면 다행이고
And if it happens, that's
안
great.
되면 그만이고
If it doesn't, oh
그래도
well.
이루고 싶으면
But if you want to try again,
또 시도를 하면
then you
되는 거.
try again.
괴로워하는 건 아무 도움이 안 돼.
So suffering in that equation does not help at all.
다른 사람이 나한테 원하는 게 있습니다.
So somebody else wants something from me,
이건 내가 다 해줄 수가 없습니다.
and I cannot fully satisfy everything that person wants.
해줄 수 있으면 해주면 되고
So if I want to help to the extent of my abilities, then go ahead.
해줄 수 없으면 죄송합니다 하면 됩니다.
And if I can't, I apologize and move on.
못 해줘서 괴롭다는 거는 다 해줘야 된다는 강박관념을 갖고 있는 거예요.
So if you are suffering because you can't do everything that person wants, means that you are actually under the mistaken assumption that you are obligated to do everything that person wants.
남이 원하는 것을 내가 다 해줄 수 없잖아요.
So no one can actually fully satisfy what anybody else wants.
여기 계신 어떤 여자분이 저하고 결혼하자고 막 목을 매단다고 내가 해줄 수 없잖아요.
So if somebody, one of you, wants to ask me to marry you, I can't oblige.
근데 내가 그걸 보고 괴로워해야 됩니까?
But should I suffer because I can't?
목을 매달고 죽겠다 해도 죽으면 내가 장례 치러주지 이러면 됩니다.
So that woman can threaten to commit suicide right there, and I'll say, okay, then I'll make sure that I send thoughts and prayers.
예, 너무 독해 보입니까?
Am I too mean?